Aphrodite. We are back finally in the captain's chair. Excuse me, one more time. We are back in the captain's chair for the first time in a few weeks, folks. Welcome back to your Insurance Corner. And my name is Bill Miksch. I'm president of WDMA Financial Group in Grays Lake, Illinois, where we represent clients in 15 states around the country. My moniker is we protect your life, we protect your health, we preserve your wealth, and guarantee an income for the rest of your life if it weren't true. It has been a incredibly chaotic, open enrollment period starting on October 15th, and it is ongoing as we speak, but we're going to get into that. Tonight's show, folks, I'm just here to tell you, we are going off the rails. Bill is pissed. Major PO'd to the point where this show might go viral. And the person who's going to help me there, the man, the legend, the way of life, coming from the bunkers somewhere in Dayton, Ohio, Sean Hauser.
Hey, Bill, how you doing tonight? Sounds like you're had an interesting conversation or seven this week.
Oh, my God. You're kidding. Yeah, it's Sean, this has been the most complicated, the most involved, the most moving parts in 34 years that I've ever seen in my industry. And I like what I do, folks. And Sean and I have been doing the show a long time, 4 years now, going on 4.5 years. I like what I do. I really do. But the rules are more complicated, more moving parts, stuff that we have to do behind the scenes that the average consumer doesn't have to deal with or see in order to get something approved by an insurance carrier. It is just chaotic. But that's not what I'm upset about, Sean. Let me tell you, before we get into that, how you doing? Because you and I have not talked in a little while. You've been traveling, and I've been traveling, and so how you doing?
I feel like that song, I've Been Everywhere, Man. It's crazy. I got to say that last, 4 or 5 weeks, either I'm in a different city or something's going on. Same with you. So It's good to be back in the studio laying down that insurance knowledge.
Yeah,
so,
well, I have honestly missed the microphone a little bit. I must tell you that when I got here, I'm like, okay, which buttons do I push again? So it wasn't that long, folks, but you only do this once a week, and then you're separated from, the chair for a little while. And you just have to kind of re-engage your gray matter a little bit to go, oh yeah, I got to do this, got to do that, got to do this. And I'm working off of guest mic number 2 because guest mic number 1 is still broken, so I don't want to mess with it. And that's okay. It's not a big deal, but normally I turn my microphone up pretty high, and I almost blew my earballs off when I turned this thing on. So I had to... As I'm speaking into my headphones, folks, I can hear myself, along with my tinnitus, of course. I turn it down a little bit so that I wouldn't just blow my brains out with the volume. But yeah, I've been into Indiana twice. I've been to Florida. I've been all over the place. And a lot of long hours. Just to give you a perspective, folks, open enrollment for Medicare Advantage, which we don't do in our office. Lots of people do, but we don't. And prescriptions, which I help my clients with. Open enrollment, that part started October 15th and ended Saturday. Now, Sean, funny little story. I work Saturday. I took a phone call at 6 o'clock at night from somebody who was desperate to get their prescription thing done, and I was getting ready to go home. So,
wow.
Yeah. I'm like, really? October 15th was when? How we could have done this like 3 weeks ago, and now all of a sudden you're in panic attack? So we got it done. We took care of them. So Thank God I have not had any more phone calls because the door's shut. The door is closed, folks, for Medicare Advantage and prescriptions. Unless you have some kind of a qualifying event, it's over. Now, the Affordable Care Act, and I use the word affordable in quotations because, frankly, folks, this abomination called Affordable Care Act is intellectually offensive to me, and we're going to get into why in a few minutes. I'm affectionately calling it Obamacare because that's what it is. And I had an argument with a friend of mine a couple of weeks ago. You got to call it the Affordable Care Act. I'm sorry. I'm done playing tiddlywinks with sewer covers. This is Obamacare. He owns it. And I've got several reasons why this is the biggest piece of cow dung on the planet, professionally speaking. And I'm going to get there in a second.
It's not even called the Affordable Care Act. It's known as the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act. It got labeled Obamacare because it was voted into office when he was
correct
when he was president, and then all of the changes to the law that happened after that is what's caused it to decompose into what you and I effectively refer to as the Abominable Care Act.
Yeah, it's just yeah. So yeah, and folks, understand, Sean and I do live on both sides of the fence. But we're not split so far that we can't agree on a couple things. So while he may go a little left and I may go a little right, we're both not on the edges where we can't even agree to what color the paint is on the wall. So unlike a lot of people, Sean and I can actually have a conversation about it. We may disagree, we may agree, and truth be told, Sean and I haven't prepared together. We didn't do any kind of, show prep before. This is live, folks. What Sean and I are doing right now is about to go viral. And Sean, just so you know, it might go viral. I've got some people in place right now. Once this show is recorded, I got some things that might happen in the background: Facebook, Instagram, blah 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 blah. So, yeah, it's crazy. So, the Affordable Care Act open enrollment started November 1st. And ends on Saturday. I think it's Saturday, or is it Sunday? December
15th or 16th, right?
The 5th, yeah, it's probably the 16th because the 15th is on a Sunday. So it's likely going to end on the 16th for a January 1st effective date. And then there's one more extra period of open enrollment that ends January 15th for a February 1st effective date. Everything runs on a calendar year basis. So whether you signed up for January or February, it's on a calendar year that your deductibles and out-of-pockets accumulate with each other. So that's what's going on now. Now, I'll be upfront on this. The insurance industry shot themselves in the foot early on when government and a lot of people were complaining about pre-existing condition clauses and underwriting tactics and kicking people off plans because all of a sudden they went from healthy to being sick. And they could have fixed this on their own, but they chose not to. So a gun was put to the insurance companies' heads, and they were dragged kicking and screaming, sort of, into this mess. Truth of the matter is, though, they have not suffered. The insurance companies have not suffered. They continue to make profits, notwithstanding what tragedy happened to the CEO of United Healthcare. The company has been very profitable. For those of you who own stock in United Healthcare, you're doing very nice. It's a pathetic, sad commentary that a 50-year-old man who was a CEO and worked his way up the food chain at United Healthcare got killed because somebody possibly had maybe a legitimate gripe, but killing that person isn't going to do any good. It doesn't help anybody. It only devastates a family. It might create some questions, but those questions are going to die in the vine like everything else. because it's not going to, you attack the wrong thing. So, but let me tell you what got my anger up, Sean. I saw a commercial over the weekend that promoted Obamacare. A woman who looked to be living a fairly nice life. I don't know, but she wasn't living in squalor, God knows. And it said that her premiums were $4 a month. And then right after that, another person said their premiums were $10 a month. Now, for the average person who's watching this commercial, that's a teaser to try to get you to call healthcare.gov so that you can buy that $4 plan or that $10 plan. That's not how this works. What they didn't tell you in that commercial was the person who was making paying $4 or $10 was making somewhere between $25,000 and $28,000 a year. That's why that policy was only $4. And they got that because they had to project what their annual income would be during that particular calendar year, in this case 2024. It presented the idea that to the average person who doesn't understand, Sean, what you do or what you know how things work, because you've got some background in some of this stuff, and I do this every day, Johnny Lunchbucket just thinks that, I want that $4 plan or I want that $10 plan. That plan doesn't exist. It does not exist in real life. In real life, that premium was $400 or $500 a month or higher for a single person. The reason why it's $4 is their income was so low that the subsidy that they received through the federal government to participate in healthcare.gov was significant enough to cover all but $4 of the premium that was billed by the insurance carrier, whoever it may have been. And what they didn't also tell you was that subsidy that's there is a loan. It's not a gift. It's a loan from the federal government through our taxes and also through, oh, by the way, the interest earned on college loans, because that's how the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, got paid. Curiously enough, government took over the college loan things around 2010, I think, or 2009, and the interest rates that they charge the kids after they get out of school go to help subsidize the Affordable Care Act. That's how this got paid for. And I use that in quotes too, because the reality was, fast forward to now, it's added $10 trillion to the national debt. When Obama first rolled this stuff out, these are some of the platitudes that were a part of the Affordable Care Act. Businesses were going to get tax credits, so were individuals. Those are the subsidies. Pre-existing conditions were going to be eliminated. That's true, and that's not changed. Can't drop you from coverage. That's true. However, that doesn't stop an insurance company from going bankrupt, and then you lost your coverage. You got a special enrollment, so now you got to go to a different company. In Illinois, there was a company called Land of Lincoln that was born out of Obamacare funds, out of thin air. And 4 or 5 years later, after they opened the doors, they closed the doors. They were in receivership and $90 million in debt with claims for people that thought they had good coverage. Coverage was great. The problem was claims are claims. And the company went out of business almost as fast as they got into it. No annual limits. So you went from a policy that had a $5 million or a $2 million limit, which existed for a long time, and I'll be the first one to say could have been that could have been easily fixed, and I'll tell you why in a second, to unlimited. Now here's why it could have been fixed in a minute. The insurance company muckety mucks that I talked to, the C-suite guys, told me a long time ago, for 0.5%, Sean, 0.5%, they could have gone from $5 million to unlimited. and my jaw dropped. I'm like, what? For bake it in. You already know how many $13 million claims are going to come through the door. You just don't know who. Bake it in. Well, they didn't, and they got forced to go unlimited. That's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. But they could have fixed it on their own. Preventive care. That was a promise. By and large, preventive care has done a good job. Kids' physicals, regular checkups, pap smear, mammogram, PSAs, colonoscopies, etc. There were some bumps in the road, particularly with colonoscopies. I think those have been fixed over time. I'll give some space on that. Here's where preventive care has fallen. Sean, when you go into a doctor's office and you're going to get a routine physical, what would you expect to have happen if you're going to have a physical?
Not sure I understand the question.
If you're going in for a regular checkup,
Yeah.
what are some of the things you would expect the doctor to do?
Oh, they're going to look up your nose, your ears, listen to your chest, maybe blood tests, maybe urine tests, things like that. I would expect that. I mean, that's what happens during my physical when I go to the doctor.
Right. So here's where it's missing. There's a piece in there that unless the plan has covered this, the way the rules work, lab and X-ray are not part of the routine checkup. As much as you would think a blood test and a urinalysis would be a necessary thing for physicals, they're not. And I found this the hard way. This was a few years ago. I thought the same thing as you. Blood work, urinalysis, do the rubber mallet on my knee, make sure my knee is still flexible, check my heart, check my blood pressure, check my breathing, check my lungs, check my eyes, etc. When I was there a few years ago, they did the blood and urine. I thought at the time that was going to be a part of the physical. It wasn't. It went towards my deductible, so it was covered, subject to my deductible. They brought out the EKG machine because of my age for 5 seconds. that was covered, subject to my deductible. So it was covered, but it wasn't free, which is what the preventive care piece is supposed to be. It's supposed to be 100% covered. So either the insurance companies got ahead of the curve and said, oh, no, we don't think the blood and urine stuff should be a part of the physical. That could be covered but not part of the physical. I don't know how that dynamic changed, but it's missing. That's a piece that easily could be fixed. And lab and X-ray, particularly lab stuff, is so dirt cheap, it's ridiculous why it's not included in a wellness checkup. The average age for college kids was increased from age 23 to 26. The donut hole, the so-called donut hole for seniors in the prescription world, was starting to be filled. Well, that ultimately has now been filled as of 2025, ladies and gentlemen. As a part of the Affordable Care Act, that hole has been fixed. Your limit, your calendar year out-of-pocket limit now, no matter what, is capped at $2,000 in prescription expenses. Diabetes medications, if they're covered, are only $35, notwithstanding how much they retail for. They're only $35. I can tell you Big Pharma is playing a role in that, Sean. They're actually subsidizing a lot of that, both that $2,000 thing and the diabetic stuff. So these are the kind of things that went into building the Affordable Care Act. And again, I'll give some room here. When you're building a brand new thing, you're going to have bumps in the road. There's ways to fix things. But then these things were promised. We're going to reduce your premium per family by $2,500 a year. That never happened. I'll tell you what did happen in a second. You could keep your doctor. You can keep your health plan. That never happened either. I'll tell you what happened in just a second. After the first year, Sean, 9.3 million people lost their coverage in the first open enrollment because premiums didn't decrease. In fact, in the first 4 years, they increased by 60%. Where am I getting this information? Just to be clear, I'm getting it from a website piece, and this was from September of 2020, so this is not even current. This just gives a historical perspective based in September of 2020 from the Texas Public Foundation. That's where this comes from. So 9.3 million people lost their coverage during the first open enrollment. Why did that happen? The insurance companies found out they were getting their butts kicked. They did in the first year allow the big networks to stay in place. A lot of the insurance companies stayed there, Cigna, Aetna, Blue Cross, United Healthcare. After the first open enrollment, United Healthcare bowed out, Cigna bowed out, Blue Cross stayed in, Aetna bowed out, and Aetna was at the table designing all this stuff. They just completely, we're gone, we're out, we're getting our butts kicked. Blue Cross turned around and said, okay, we're going to stay in, but you can't have the big networks anymore. We're going to put the HMO in place and or the smaller networks. And in some counties around the country, I'm giving historical perspectives so that you guys can understand where I'm coming from with this. So for several counties around the country, there was no exchange, no ability for anybody to buy health insurance. They were not available. I remember there was something like 18 or 22 counties in Ohio, for example, that didn't have any coverage whatsoever. And yet there was still a mandate penalty if you didn't have coverage. So what are you supposed to do if you can't get it? 214,000 doctors opted out of the exchange. But the exchange, this whole thing was supposed to increase access. It did the latter. It reduced access. Premiums
Why
again.
Why would they opt out?
Money.
Were they not getting paid?
Yep.
Or they didn't want to get.
They weren't part of the smaller networks. They weren't part of the HMO. They weren't part of the smaller PPO networks. So they opted out because they felt that they should be earning X amount instead of ABC amount. They got out because of money. And I'm going to be an equal bomb thrower here. There's a lot more to talk about. But these things did not come to fruition. And so fast forward to now, your max out of pocket on an Affordable Care Act plan or Obamacare plan on average is $9,200 per person per year. The smallest deductible that I've seen, at least in Illinois, is $750. Copays for prescriptions are good for generics, but if you need to have name brand drugs for whatever reason, you have to go through your deductible first before the copay kicks in. And the copay may not be a flat dollar amount. It may be a percentage of the retail cost. People don't see that until it's time, and then what are they doing? They're buying a premium, not necessarily getting any help to understand the moving parts about what else is going on. How do I know this? Because premium is the first thing the person sees. Can I afford this? Yes or no? If they're fairly healthy, they don't look at the $9,200 out of pocket. They're like, okay, at least I have health insurance. And sadly, some people think the penalty's still in place, so they're buying it because they think they have to. I think they should have to, but not because there's a penalty, just because it's the right thing to do. At the same time, all of these policies, Sean, are age-based. So as you get older, they're getting more expensive. Personal, in my particular case, I have a $3,300 deductible HSA, and my premiums per month are $1,500 a month for that plan. $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year, and I have to go through a $3,300 deductible before I get a penny of help from Blue Cross. And that's because that's the only plan I can afford. If I wanted the bigger network, and by the way, I'm in a smaller network with that. If I want the bigger network, that same premium goes up to $2,300 a month. That's a mortgage payment. Can't do it. This, going back to this commercial, and this happens in the Medicare Advantage world too. You remember the Joe Namath commercials, Sean, where
Oh yeah.
It's free, and if you listen to the commercial, the right way, what they were talking about, the word free, was the phone call. The phone call was free. But the way the inflection was, they made it sound like the insurance policy was free. In a lot of cases with Medicare Advantage plans, they are free. Literally zero premium. And what's the first thing people are going to look at? What's it going to cost out of their pocket? I don't blame them. I don't blame them.
No, and not to defend those ads, because as soon as the enrollment period, 21 days or so in the horizon, you start seeing everybody. I mean, it was J.J. Walker, and it was probably have Ice-T next year showing these in his auto repair warranty programs. And, you're right. And what they're trying to do is get you to call in, and then, all this stuff is free. Well, maybe certain things are free or they don't have a cost up front, but to get to them, you've got a deductible, you've got a copay, you've got a this or a that, and they're not going to get you to call them if they're, up front and here's everything.
Yep.
Right? I mean,
yep. At the same time, go ahead.
That ad on Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, and all those other cable channels that have to sell their souls to get ad revenue, those things, I mean, they're running them every hour.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just blowing dollars out the door. They've got to get you in. So they're not gonna tell you, well, it's not really free, but
yeah. I can tell you, I actually called one of those 800 numbers on behalf of my client to get more information. They wouldn't talk to me.
No, of course not.
They wouldn't talk to me because I wasn't a buyer. I was an information seeker. I can't wait. Folks, I'm going to be turning 65 in 10 months. Okay? I can't wait to have fun with these moronic pinheads at these 800 numbers.
Don't hold back, Bill. No, and the thing is, and I know that, you're sitting there and you've got 20 some odd years and what I went to college for, and this is things that I've been dealing with, and we get it, right? Well, overeducating the consumer has never been a hallmark of the insurance industry.
Amen,
right?
brother.
I mean, there's so many people out there that are snake oil salesmen or used car salesmen, and that's probably offensive to car salesmen because they're not that bad. But I worked on the investment side, and this broker ripped me off, and we just do a bad job. And things like this, all they're out is to get phone calls in because it's a numbers game, and if I get 1,000 people to call me, I'll convert 15%, and that makes my number for the day.
Yep.
And it's crazy.
Yep. Well, we're at a break, Sean. This half hour went really quick. I've got some thoughts on some other things because, as I told you before, I'm an equal opportunity bomb thrower. It's not just the insurance company that's the villain here. There's a whole bunch of people in the food chain that have to have a come to Jesus meeting with. And we're going to cover those things. And then I'm going to suggest a couple of things that we can do to maybe help make the insurance products a little cheaper maybe, or a little bit more accessible financially than where they're at right now. So with that in mind, that's Sean Hauser. My name is Bill Miksch. I'm president of WDMA Financial Group in Grayslake, Illinois. This is your Insurance Corner at 101.5 FM WLCB, Slade's Corner, Wisconsin. We'll be right back after these short messages.